I'm Jen, and I'm today in Retreat Leader Hub talking with Anna VanAgtmael. She is a retreat host and business mentor with a passion for connecting with others. She founded her company Wandering Roots to provide all-inclusive retreats with a laid-back vibe so the guests can choose their own adventure. She also offers mentorship and planning services to help women in the wellness industry plan and host their own profitable retreats. Welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Take two. Thanks for being patient.
Yes, so good to be here.
But we'll dive right back into for the first question, which was, we were talking about the most common mistake that you see first-time retreat leaders make.
Sure. So always planning for the unexpected. So just emergency costs, things you didn't consider in the first place, things that were just a complete accident or natural disaster, I guess, could happen. So I always tell all of my students to put in a line item for unexpected costs, and whatever your total budget is, I tell them to add like 10 to 15% for that line item of your total budget, just to cover you so that you don't have to take a hit personally. The biggest things I've stumbled upon that I've just learned from experience is rental cars. I have a business account. I get a quote, a very detailed quote from any country we're going to or state. And there's just always a bill when I get home. I've prepay, and then there's still just some like miscellaneous charge when I get home. I don't know why. And then clear contracts. So I always have a personal photographer on staff, and sometimes she needs to rent additional equipment. So that has to be covered. And then a personal chef as well, a private chef. And we usually work together and come up with a budget for groceries and her labor. But I think if you don't have a clear contract, sometimes they're going to charge you for your labor and then send you a bill later for like groceries or, lens fees or something. So
Yeah, no, I think that those are all really wonderful thoughts. Like, we live in the time when you should absolutely expect the unexpected, perhaps even more than in the past.
Yes.
So yeah, I think to your points, like there are these things that with experience, we get a little bit more of an insight into what, might inflate our costs in a way we didn't expect, but then always good to have that buffer, like you said at the beginning, just to make sure for whatever you couldn't anticipate, you're not caught out financially. That's all really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
My second question is around veteran retreat leaders. What's something that you see even people that have a lot of experience maybe not quite getting right?
I think ROI, return on investment of your time. So I think time management is a huge thing, just as being for an entrepreneur. Just figuring out how long it takes to do a lot of the admin or the behind the scenes stuff that people don't actually, when you think about running a retreat, you don't think about like your email list or your client management software and like bookkeeping or anything like that. And those things end up taking probably more time than actually hosting or planning your schedule. So it's hard. There are ways to like do it, to figure out how to actually pay yourself a more appropriate wage. And that's something I do mentor my students on. But I also think from experience, you can find a place where you're not depleted by so much work and like, oh, now I'm only going to make X amount of money, even though I dumped months into this thing and you thought you were going to spend a weekend doing it, So I think return on investment and just how much time it takes to do each task. So
yeah, totally. And if just psychologically, if anyone out there is like me, I tend to underestimate the things that I procrastinate over and that I maybe aren't my favorite parts of the process. Like, let's be honest, admin probably the reason that nobody got into the retreat business. So, yeah, I think inflating your estimates of how long all that stuff may take you. And using technology where you can to make it easier and not so manual. I think those are really valuable thoughts and probably something that catches us all out just because it's kind of a human nature factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even putting processes into place to like optimize your process, to like streamline it and everything, that takes time. I mean, you build it once and hopefully it'll work for you in the future, but like building that takes so much time. So yeah.
Absolutely.
A big one.
Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about retreat center contracts and kind of the relationship with retreat centers. Usually the contracts are pretty detailed and formulaic, but
Yes.
would you point to any kind of top accommodation related costs that people sometimes miss because they're not maybe explicitly stated in the contracts?
Sure. So I agree with you. I think retreat centers kind of got it down. Like they're in the business of just finding hosts, and then they have this beautiful property that they're on a team and everything. So they usually have their everything together and very streamlined and organized and easy to digest. But if you are working with a new retreat center or just renting from a third party, just renting a house that's not a retreat center, there can be a lot of things in your contract that you need to be aware of, that, cleaning costs or things that maybe aren't super upfront. And I know retreat centers sometimes they have a la carte options. So do you want transportation? Do you want excursions? Do you want all of the things? But even if you're good, your contracts are clear, you're working with the right people, and there's nothing unexpected, I still like going to the place to scout the locations and some of the excursions, because I personally don't want to take my guests on like terrible excursions, make them stay in places that maybe don't look as good as they do online. So I always try to account for scouting fees, because my travel costs need to be covered. And I never like to arrive or depart at the same time as my guests, because I think the energy isn't as good. I like to kind of get there and like get a feel for the area, decide where we're going to, eat dinner or host our workshops or all of the things. And so I want to get there before they do. And in the past, I've been able to either negotiate an early check-in, sometimes with a fee, sometimes not. Or I come a night earlier than my guests. So then you have to, accommodate for that in your budget. You need to have an extra night, either on the beginning or the end of your retreat, or both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very good thoughts. And I totally echo that it's best practice, obviously, to go there before if you can. And
Yeah.
I really think it's extremely thoughtful, especially to kind of arrive earlier, like you said, so that you have this kind of more grounded energy when people actually arrive. That's great. And I think, on one hand, retreat centers have had it hard having this huge disruption to their business. But I think as they come back, hopefully some of these like more negotiable points will be areas that they're willing to again, negotiate and work with you on. So those are always good things to keep in your back pocket when you're going through your
for sure, we'll probably have the upper hand in negotiating, but which I feel terrible for everybody in the travel industry, period, right now. But I like to work with anybody that and make a relationship that's symbiotic to both. So I want us both to benefit either way, because I mean, I had to cancel most of my year this year, and I because of those really great relationships that I established in the beginning, it didn't turn out to be a disaster or a huge financial loss. So I think the more that you care about the people you work with, the better off you're going to be in situations that nobody can plan for. So
yes, absolutely. This year has really taught us that it's about squeezing the last dollar out of your partners, because you want them to have your back and vice versa in a tough situation.
Yes.
And I love all the things you said about working with good retreat centers who have, it's not their first rodeo hosting a retreat group. Normally, they, just like veteran retreat planners, they can anticipate a lot of what goes into the whole making the sausage, and help you out in ways that whenever something unforeseen arises. So absolutely. Maybe to move to kind of zoom out to the budgeting process overall, when people are setting up their budgets, there's a lot that needs to go into kind of the cost side. So there's obviously there's the obvious things that are like travel, accommodations, food, the more concrete stuff. But what are some things that are easier to miss because they're not quite as concrete or quantifiable or just easy to not quite think about when you're putting together numbers?
So I think credit card fees, I mean, I normally just add 3% to all of my prices to make sure I'm not losing money when you take a transaction, unless you don't take credit card and you only take cash or check. But I think most people probably in the industry are taking credit cards. Processing fees for anybody that you're working with, any of your vendors, or if you're using a platform like WeTravel or other places to advertise your retreat, sometimes there's a 10 to 15% processing fee, which in my opinion is fair because they're helping you with advertising. So it's almost an advertising fee, but just account for it in somewhere in your budget. Facebook ads or any advertising, social media ads, old-fashioned advertising, especially if you need to hire somebody to do it, it can get really expensive. I think those are probably the big ones that just with more experience, I kind of could figure out a better number for. But yeah, advertising, credit card fees, processing fees, rental car fees always.
Yeah, I think on the financial front, like for example, what our product does with WeTravel is it allows you to take a credit card payment that you can then charge the fee. You can either absorb it yourself or charge it to the person who's joining.
Yes.
Or you give them the option to pay by bank transfer and they don't have to pay anything, and hopefully you encourage them to do it that way.
Yeah.
So on the front end, there's those costs, but then also on the back end, all of a sudden, especially if you're doing an international retreat, it's like, okay, are you taking a hit on the exchange rate? Do you have to pay fees to wire money across borders? There can be a lot of hidden or not so obvious costs that go into just the money piece. And again, that's like where somebody like WeTravel as a partner that you can transfer the money across borders. You can do it by a wire, you can do it by credit card. You just have some options. So I think regardless of who you're working with to help you on the money side of things, just, kind of tick off at the beginning, whoever you might be needing to send money to, make sure you know how, financially how they're going to accept payment and where, and that you're not going to, that whatever it costs to make that transaction doesn't, sort of cripple you on the exchange rate or on transaction fees, because they can really add up over time, especially those percentage driven costs can. Yeah, and then I guess just anything else that you would say on the cost side of things trips people up because it's hard to hard to figure out in terms of I guess we touched at the beginning on your time, but anything else like in that vein that you just feel like over time you may have gotten an easier way of estimating it, but in the beginning it feels really intimidating to try to figure out. Yeah.
I think money is a big hang up for a lot of people. I think maybe the amount of the investment to host a retreat seems overwhelming or too much. I think retreat centers normally take some of that liability away from you because they're not requiring you a lot of times to pay a rental fee. They just are giving you based on your sales, whatever is left over. But either way, there's not an upfront investment. I personally hosted internationally in Banff National Park my second time, which was, if I could give anybody some advice to not do it the way I did it, like start small. Like start with a weekend retreat local to you. And then that's a better way for you to start like tracking how long it takes you to do admin tasks for even a short retreat because it's probably the same amount of time for a longer one. I learned a lot about unexpected costs there as well because we got hit by a blizzard and I had multiple trips to pick up my gas and I realized I needed some more compost if I was going to be able to pull this off in the future. People lost their luggage, like things like that. So I think being willing to always be a student and learn and then do better next time from what you have learned and from the knowledge you've gained from that experience. And then being flexible. I mean, like, you're probably the only one that's noticing anything going wrong anyway. But yeah, I think that work with a retreat center if you don't want to like come up with too much money up front. Hire a mentor, like even or just offer to pay your friend for their time, maybe to like kind of educate you on some of that like return on investment admin time stuff of, you know, to finish those tasks. Or there's multiple programs. I know WeTravel's doing a program as well to mentor people to host. So I think investing in the areas that you're uncertain in will save you money in the long run, personally. Are you there? I think you're frozen. Okay, I think we lost Jen. But I guess I could give her a minute to see if she's back on. I believe I'm still on, so even though she's the host, somehow I'm still here. And I know she was having tech difficulties before, so I won't be able to see if there's any questions. Oh. You're back.
Yay! If you have, we are still live. So
yeah, like I can see I'm still on, but we lost Jen. So
I'm so sorry, everyone. Please. All right. Did you get to the end of the response there? I'm sorry.
No, let's give her a minute, and then if not, I don't know how to answer anyone's questions because I can't see the questions here.
Gotcha. Well, actually, my last question to you was just gonna, well, one, to say thank you for all of that amazing information.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask where people can find out more about you and what you do at Wandering Roots.
Sure. So my website is wanderingroots.com. My Instagram handle is the same, your Wandering Roots. And then Facebook, it's Wandering Roots. And then you can email me, Anna, at your Wandering Roots if you have if you want to talk about anything. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you're not live and you're watching this later, that's fine too. But yeah, those are all of my connections.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. Apologies for the technical difficulties twice. You were great. Like you were like a total dream guest. So thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with us. Everyone will wrap it up here, but this will live forever in our Retreat Leader Hub as a recording and also as a post on our blog. And please check out Wandering Roots. Anna does some great work. So thank you. And have a great Friday.
You too. Have a great day.